freedom of press as we do here in the United States. For example, China, Russia, Cuba, and North Korea do not have freedom of press as we do. This may not just apply to newspaper, but also applies to any social media with any type of written information. This also may apply to blog. Kids are afraid to touch on certain topics because they're afraid that will not be approved. Therefore, they start to censor themselves, such as censoring themselves on personal topics. Yes, student officials can censor school newspapers, but only to a certain extent, such as if a student's privacy was jeopardized in the information in the newspaper.
Yeah.
I am now talking to Aaron Manfold, journalist teacher at Francis Howell North High School. First question, what is your role as you oversee the school newspaper?
Well, my role as journalism advisor of the school newspaper is basically just to be an advisor for the students on the staff. It's not my newspaper to run. I don't make decisions for it. I'm really there to help them with the decision-making process. So I'm there to guide them, to advise them, to teach them different skills, to make them better at writing or design or photography. And when they have tough decisions to make, I'm there to help them make the best educated decision possible. So a lot of times it's just me playing devil's advocate with them about, what could happen if they make this type of decision as opposed to this type of decision.
Right. While working with students with topics, what are your biggest struggles?
What do you mean by that?
Is biggest struggles. Like what's what to put in the paper, like decision making, things like that.
Okay, yeah. I think one of the biggest things I struggle with, probably more than anything, is like students self-censoring themselves, like not wanting to try to touch on certain topics, touch on certain subjects, or writing stories about certain things because, like, initially they don't think they're able to, or that it's something they shouldn't talk about, or a lot of times they think, I'm just a high school kid, so it's not really something that anybody's going to listen to me about. So one of the biggest struggles I have is getting them to understand that, they can write about touchy subjects, and they can tackle hard stories, and they can call up, important and famous people and show up to events and actually get interviews with them and cover them. And so it's getting them to get out of that mindset that they're just a high schooler.
What are your feelings about freedom of press in public schools?
I think freedom of press in public schools, it varies from school to school depending on where you are. And I wish that there was more consistency on that front. A lot of times it really depends on the administrator you have in the building and how much they understand about the journalism classroom and kind of what's going on. I mean, my job as I see it is, I was hired to teach journalism and to teach kids the right way to do things and the wrong way to do it and to follow the law and everything like that. And in a lot of schools, administrators try to step in and do the job for the teacher that they've hired. It would be like a principal, for instance, being down on the sideline at a football game on Friday night and giving the plays to the coach and telling them what plays they can run or what they can't or who they should be starting at halfback. And, luckily here I've had a great principal who, has, trusted me to teach the kids, the difference between right and wrong. But she knows they're going to make some dumb mistakes and do some stupid things, but that it's a learning process, just like a football team's not going to win every game. So, but again, the principal doesn't step in and try to take over the playbook or do anything like that. And so, my feeling about freedom of press is that students should be learning and practicing the same rights that, professionals are out there in the field. Because, I guess in public schools, the First Amendment should apply to them just as it does everybody else in the country.
Do you see a difference with freedom of the press between public and private schools?
I mean, like in a perfect world, I think the press in a public school and a private school should have the same rights. I mean, we know like private schools are, have different sets of laws that they operate under and don't have to follow certain national guidelines and things like that because of their funding. But if we're having journalism classes and we're teaching students about responsibility, we need to allow them to practice their First Amendment rights. I mean, like high school to me, it's like such a safe place. I mean, you guys you're growing up, you're starting to form who you are and make these big decisions, and to me, it's this place where you should be allowed to screw up. Because in high school, if you screw up, there's usually somebody there to kind of catch you when you fall and pick you back up and teach you a lesson about it. Whereas I think in some places, schools are like, they're so scared or they clamp down so much with what they're doing, and they don't give students a chance to try some things out or learn from their mistakes. But then what's happening is they get out of high school and they go out to college, or they're just out in real life every day, and they do some things and make mistakes, and there's nobody there to pick them up when they fall, and they actually could get in some deep, deep trouble.
Do you see any big differences of freedom of press between schools and public newspapers?
Well, nationally, like pretty much with public schools, everything should be the same legally with a high school paper and a professional paper, except for like the Tinker standard that's out there, which is the Des Moines versus Tinker ruling that came back in the 60s, and then obviously the Hazelwood ruling, which came out in the 80s, which does limit what students are able